Directors and Chief Vigilance Officer for lighting of lamp. I shall now request our Managing Director and CEO, Shri Sunil Mehta, to please felicitate Swami Swarnaranji. I would now request Swamiji to please guide us further.
Love and greetings to each one of you, dear divine Atmans. I am a simple sannyasi. I am overwhelmed to come to a corporate house like this. It's all I see only this atmosphere in some posh airports, otherwise not in my living huts where I live. Taittiriya Upanishad says, from joy we have come, for joy we live, and in that sacred joy one day we shall melt again. In a world of duality where we see and go through so much pain and suffering all around us, such a statement may sound unrealistic, isn't it so? Is it possible that I have come from joy, I live for joy, and one day I can melt in that joy? Is it possible? I mean, we see so much pain and suffering, we may not fully grasp the import of such a statement, but the words of an Upanishad cannot be taken lightly. If only we practice the methods, procedures well mapped out by ancient seers, rishis, one day we will watch for the veracity of such a statement. It should be possible, because the words of an Upanishad cannot go wrong. In Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, referring to yoga, meditation, Svalpam affasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, meaning even a little practice of this yoga meditation will save you from dire fears inherent in this life. Svalpam affasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, even a little practice will save you from dire fears. Bhagavan Krishna is not assuring us that we will not have troubles in life. Tests and troubles and trials are there, but the fears that come out of it, that we can conquer. It seems as long as there is life, what is guaranteed is anxiety. That is guaranteed for everyone. Whether it is a boy of 10-year-old or a youth of 20 years, or a housewife of 30, a 40-year-old businessman or a 70-year-old retired person, what next? What next? Isn't it there so much? Whatever may be your station in life, whatever may be you are doing, what next? That anxiety seems to be there. And it is possible to live free from anxiety. A fearless life is possible. That is Bhagavan Krishna is assuring. Again, he cannot go wrong. We should understand how to. If only we practice this yoga meditation, we will be able to be calmly active and actively calm. A prince of peace sitting on a throne of poise, directing our kingdom of activity. This is not poetry, this is reality. We can always be princes of peace, sitting on the throne of poise and directing our kingdom of activity. It is possible. It is possible to be calmly active and actively calm, not lazy, actively calm. It is possible. Yoga meditation helps us. I have one short story. There was one person, he had a lot of problems, mainly financial problems and other problems that come from financial problems. So he tried and tried and tried, he was not able to get over his financial problems. One night he had a dream. God appeared to him and advised him, go to the outskirts of the town, there you would find a sadhu, ask him, he will give a diamond, that would clear your problems. He was very happy. He believed in his dream. Next day, before the sun was up, he rushed to the outskirts. There he found a sannyasi, a sadhu sitting under a tree. He rushed to him and said, diamond, diamond, diamond. Sannyasi could not understand, because sannyasi did not have the dream, he had the dream. So he asked what? Then he said, in dream God asked me to collect the diamond from you. Oh, now I see. A few days back when I was moving in the forest, there I found one diamond. That is what probably God is referring to. So he took his diamond out of his shoulder bag and said, take it. That diamond was so huge, so precious, so rare, value. It would solve all his problems and the problems of his children and their children. It is so valuable. He collected it, was extremely happy, went home. That night he couldn't quite sleep because of excitement. Next day morning, before the sun came up, he rushed to the sadhu. He was still there. He said, here is your diamond, please take it back. He was surprised. Why? I gave it to you wholeheartedly. God asked you to collect it from me. Why are you returning it? No, no, please take it. Tell me the reason. Why do you want to give it? Then he said, there is something in you by which you are able to give away this diamond so easily. I want that something. I mean, if I donate 100 rupees to someone, it means that I have something more than 100. So there is something in you by which you are able to give away that diamond so easily. Diamond is useful even for a sadhu. Health insurance, material security and social status, this, that, it is useful for him also in some way, but he could give away. But there is something more valuable, that is inner security. That inner security, inside there is something by which you are able to take things with more equanimity. Inner security, that is what I want, that is what I want. Let me give another mundane example. If you have fever, you approach a doctor, temperature is there, so immediately he gives paracetamol. You take paracetamol 6 hourly, 8 hourly, whatever, and now the temperature goes down. But is it all what generally a doctor gives? In addition to paracetamol, he gives one more tablet. What is that? Antibiotic. Because paracetamol reduces the temperature, giving symptomatic relief. But until the bacteria that is causing this temperature is removed, I really do not have a relief, isn't it so? So that bacteria, the root cause of this temperature has to be removed by bacteria. So that antibiotic is required. Same thing in my life. I have this financial problem, I have this professional problem, I have this family problem, I have this social problem, I have this relationship problem, I have these problems, they are real. But trying to remove this financial problem, it will come back again. Or if you remove that, this is not going, another family problem is there, and professional problem is there. These are not one by one. If I remove the financial problem, definitely I have symptomatic relief. That problem is not there temporarily for some time. But I should look into that root cause. There is root cause which is giving rise to these external problems, symptoms. So that root cause I have to find out and remove, so that these problems, they themselves don't arise. And what is that root cause? That is ignorance, ajnan, ignorance of divinity. We are all potentially divine, each one of us. We are all different expressions of the same divinity. We are all divine, but we are not aware of that. We are ignorant of our own divinity. That is why these problems are coming. At least we view those problems in that particular light because of ignorance of the divinity. That bacteria is that ignorance, that has to be removed. How do we remove that bacteria, so that these symptoms won't appear as serious as they are? For that we have to go within and remove that. That is where yoga, meditation helps. Put in other words, I have this body, I have a responsibility to take care of this body by right diet, right exercise, isn't it so? I have a responsibility. If I do that, the body in turn gives me health and mobility. I have a responsibility to the body, and body in turn gives me that health and mobility. But I also have a mind. I have to cultivate my mind by positive thinking, intellectual pursuits, isn't it so? When I cultivate my mind by intellectual pursuits and positive thinking, in turn mind gives me intelligence and ability to get along with others, and that comes in ability to get along with others comes from my mind, not from my body. So I have a responsibility towards my body and my mind, and most of us do this. We take care of our bodies, we take care of our minds, but we have one more faculty. We are not just simple bodies and minds. Each person has a body, a mind, and soul. That is where we fall short. We have a responsibility to nourish the soul too, nourish the soul, and nourishment for the soul is deep contemplation, meditation. I mean, that is the food for soul. We have to nourish the soul by giving proper food, and when we nourish the soul, in turn soul gives us intuition, creativity, unconditional joy, perfect love. The unconditional joy, something which does not depend on external conditions, can only come from soul. The intuition, we sometimes intuitively we feel, not because of this, intuitively we feel a solution to some of our problems. That intuition comes from soul. So that if we have to live a full life, we have to have a balanced development of body, mind and soul. For that we have to include meditation in our daily life. It is not that we are not intuitive, we are intuitive, but we can deepen our intuition, deepen our creativity, deepen our that unconditional love and joy inside by meditation. So there is a need for meditation for each one of us. Otherwise we are falling short. Somewhere we are neglecting our own being. The total being is being neglected. I would like to digress here and address one point. What is God? What is God? God is a word we have been hearing from childhood. It is a concept we are asked to believe, or something like that. There are many descriptions of God, many definitions of God. They are all right in their own right. But for me personally, the definition of God which is closest to my heart personally is this: God is Satchidanand. That is what I like most. God is Satchidanand. But what is Satchidanand? We must understand. Satchidanand is again a word we are familiar from childhood. We name our children Satchidanand. But did we ever stop and contemplate what does it really mean, Satchidanand? I would like to explain that. Then we understand. So God, now we have no concept of God, no idea of God. We do not know whether God is he or she or it. If there is someone like God, Can that someone be sorrowful? Can you imagine a God, someone, whoever it is, we don't know much about, can that someone be sorrowful? No. I mean, even if we are not making a grave mistake by assuming that God is joy. God is someone, yes, he is joyful, God is joy. But to say God is joy, God is Anand, is a gross understatement. God is not simple Anand. For instance, when I take a mango, it gives me joy. A second mango gives me further joy. Third mango doesn't give me the same joy. Fourth, I don't want to take. The theory of diminishing, theory of marginal. This is applicable not only to mangoes and sweets. This is applicable to every item, every experience in this creation. Don't you agree? There are so many things in life we liked once, second, third time, fourth time. Slowly it fades. The interest in that activity, in that item fades. It is natural. There is one thing in this creation to which this principle does not apply. That is God contact. Because God is not joy. God is ever new joy. God is Nitya Naveen Anand. God is Nitya Naveen Anand, is ever new. Anant is unanticipatory ever newness, that is ever new joy. God contact and meditation also is ever new. That is why we see sometimes, a devotee meditating today, people may ask, I saw him meditating yesterday, day before yesterday, why, how does it matter if he does not meditate today? No, it is so new. Again, meditation is so new, it is ever new joy. That something, the joy of God, the joy of meditation is something you never get bored, it never goes stale. That is God, ever new joy, Nitya Naveen Anand. God is not only ever new joy, he is ever conscious of his ever new joy, he is aware. He is aware of his ever new joy. Awareness, consciousness means Chit. God is Chidanand, ever conscious, ever new joy. God may be ever conscious of his ever new joy, but what good it is if it exists for a little while and then gone. I mean, that is for me, because as a human being, I can relate to events between my birth and my death. I can relate only to this, but God is, God was, and God will be. God is ever existing. What is ever existing? That is truth. God is ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. God is truth, Sat, Chit, Anand. I mean, that is what is meant by Satchidanand. Satchidanand means ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. That is God. But I don't stop here. When I talk about God, when I describe God, my personal description of God is this: God is Satchidanand and Aham Brahmasmi. It is not statement of the master I follow, it is fundamental truth. All scriptures declare that, all religions proclaim that. Aham Brahmasmi, meaning Aham means I am Brahman, I am God, meaning potentially I am ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy. I mean, that is what I am. Meaning you are, he is, she is. We are all potentially ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. Now, can you relate to Taittiriya Upanishad? From joy we have come, for joy we live, in that sacred joy one day we shall melt again. That is because of this, because that is our true nature. Of course, we are ignorant of that nature and normally living as mortal beings, human, normal, subject to all these pulls and pressures, but potentially is that. Before going further, I would like to explain a little bit about this joy, the joy of God, because joy is not something unknown to us. We are joyful in so many occasions. When we eat some food, we are joyful. When we meet a person, we are joyful. Joy is not something unknown, but this joy of meditation, the joy of God, joy of meditation is so different. I would like to share that with you. To explain that, I would like to put it this way: the joy of meditation, it has three shades. It is physiological, it is psychological, it is spiritual. It has three shades to explain it. Physiological in the sense, suppose when I take a sweet or a mango, my physiologically something happens here, taste buds get excited, that is why I am joyful. When I take a sweet, no one needs to tell me that you have taken a sweet, be happy. No one needs to tell me, because physiologically there are impulses, automatically same thing when you meditate, physiologically there are some changes. Your body feels light, your eyes, everything. It physiologically there are some changes. No one needs to tell me you have to be joyful, you have to be peaceful. I am peaceful, I am peace, I am joy. I mean that experience comes. Physiologically you feel that there is change if I am meditating properly. Psychological. For me to be happy, to be joyful, I do not have to necessarily take a mango or a sweet. Suppose I am sitting here, I hear some good news, something happened to my family, I am at company or something somewhere happened, good, immediately I feel happy, because it is not physiological, but psychologically something happened here. Same thing when you meditate, it is not only physiological, psychologically, yes, all will be well. That inner assurance, all will be yes, it is being taken care. And that inner assurance, you get that, psychologically you feel so refreshed, so joyful. That psychological aspect is there for meditation, result of meditation. And finally, that is more important for me, spiritual. To explain the spiritual shade of this joy, I would like to quote a quotation of Paramahansa Yoganandaji. He is the author of this book. Most of you must have seen this, Autobiography Yogi, I mean whom I follow, I come from that place, Yoga Satsanga Society. Paramahansa Yoganandaji, he quoted, said that when bliss comes over you, you recognize it as a conscious, intelligent, universal being to whom you may appeal, and not as an abstract mental concept. Understand his words. What he said is, when that bliss comes over you in meditation, when joy, that joy you recognize it as a conscious, intelligent, universal being to whom you may appeal. Meaning that, see, the joy that comes after eating a mango, that is so different, but the joy that comes in meditation, when that joy comes, it comes the sense of higher presence. Yes, higher presence. It does not mean that we are going to see a person there sitting on a throne with 4 heads and 8 hands. If someone sees it, okay, I have no issue, but does not happen that way. Without seeing anyone, without hearing anyone, you have that inner conviction that there is some higher presence. You recognize that joy as a conscious, intelligent, universal being to whom you may appeal. There is a sort of connection with that superior, higher presence. I would say higher presence, without seeing anything, without hearing anything. I mean that is beautiful. I mean that is most important aspect of the joy of meditation. It is not the joy we are normally familiar with. We are familiar with joy. We have so different kinds of joys we experience in life. They are all good, but this is something beyond that, beyond words. It has spiritual aspect, psychological aspect, and physiological aspect. I mean that is the thing. That is the thing. So if it is possible, being each one being a part of that divinity, we are part of this whole creation, we have that potentially inside, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new joy, which is so well. I mean as a result, no matter what is happening around me, no matter what is happening to me, I can be joyful. I mean that is fundamental truth. No matter what is happening around me, no matter what is happening to me, I can be joyful. That is what all scriptures say. Our job is to get to that state. Potentially that is there, we have to get to that state of contacting that. Okay. That is what many people down the centuries of various religions, they have contemplated on these, practiced these basic principles, scientific principles, and attained that. And how does it help? It is like this. Suppose there is a mentally depressed person, a person is mentally depressed, and friends and relatives would like to pull him out of it. No, they arrange parties and movies and shows and this and that and special food, all that they keep arranging around him so that to pull him out of the depression. But anything may be happening around here, he doesn't. He is so depressed, it's not easy for him to come up, although so much is happening. Sincerely people are arranging and organizing. Imagine just the reverse situation. One who has been meditating regularly, able to contact the joy inside, he lives in that level. The joy is there. No matter what is happening around him, to pull him down, it is not easy to pull him down. There is so much pain and suffering here. There are so many problems here, definitely, but it is not easy to pull him down. Like it is difficult to pull a mentally depressed person up, it is difficult to pull down a person who is there. I mean that because it is essence of our own being, the joy. It is possible. It is possible. I mean that is what it does. Now we see in the lives of many saints all over, all religions. Let us say Bhakta Meera. She was so much joyful, because she had problems, many more problems. Probably none of us has faced those problems. What problems she faced, but she was able to live in that joy. No matter what is happening around me, no matter what is happening to me, I can still be joyful. And many saints that, and you can be that, I can be that, definitely. I will give some mundane example, real life examples. When I was in IIT Kharagpur research, one of my colleagues, research scholar, finished his PhD, submitted his thesis was approved, then final was there, Viva Voce exam. There was a seminar, there he had to defend his thesis, that is end of it, that is the final. So we all assembled for the Viva Voce exam, and the external examiner was Professor B. Nag from the Department of Electronics, Delhi. He was the one who built the first computer in India, that was in 70s. This happened in 81. So he came a little late. So meanwhile we are all talking, in a small seminar hall like that, we are all talking, and we are all not formally sitting. Then examiner came with my professor, head of the department, Professor Saraf. As soon as he came, he asked, where is the candidate? Just to then Professor Saraf introduced, here is the candidate. He was talking with us. As soon as he saw, the Professor Nag just went back like this. You appear so relaxed, as if exam is already over. I mean, this is the comment given by external examiner. Normally exam means what? Tough, Whether the exam for a high school boy or a college boy or a PhD or a presentation or in a corporate world, when we are presenting something, we are defending something, tough, the anxiety is there. I mean that it has written so much, the external examiner expected that. But that man who has been practicing Kriya Yoga, which we teach, for what year he was practicing, he said that what is there to be worried about? I prepared. I mean, it is not that I just came arbitrarily. I have prepared. I am ready to defend the thesis. What is there to be anxious? What is the fear? Fearlessness. I have prepared. And don't you want to be that? Don't you want to live in that fearless state? Events are coming. Events have not changed. But my attitude has changed, and that is what we can get from meditation. That is what inner strength. Conditions won't change. We cannot change conditions, but that inner strength to face the conditions. There was one young IAS officer. He is still there, although retired now, and in Patna, and he used to spend time in meditation, morning and evening. Other colleagues know that he spends time in meditation. IAS officers, they are public servants, they are on duty, anytime they can be called upon, for something has happened here, there, etc. They asked, we don't understand, how do you work by spending so much time in meditation? We don't understand, how do you work by spending so much time in meditation? And that young officer said, yes, I don't understand, how do you work without spending so much time in meditation? I mean, that is the one which is giving me the strength. That is the one. It is not waste of time. That is giving that, sharpening the axe. that is giving them. When I was in HAL, Hyderabad, that area, Tuesday, Monday was a holiday. Monday, that area, because of power cuts or whatever it is, Monday was a holiday. And Tuesday morning, we all assemble for whole work, and most people would say, no, oh, again Tuesday. Tuesday we did drudgery next 5.5 days, did drudgery next 5.5 days, again Tuesday. But one among us would say, now Tuesday. Well, he was enthusiastic, where many people were, again drudgery, I have to go to office, because most people spend their weekend, in parties and movies and this and that activity, so many union, this, that, etc. By next Tuesday morning, they are all tired. But this man was spending a little longer time in meditation, reading this, that, meditation. He was equipped, again ready for challenge. Because it is not a burden. Work is not a burden for him just because he is meditating. He is looking forward, because the whole thing becomes, it is a part of my life. My family is my life, work is my life, meditation my life, everything is fine, That fearlessness is there. Events do not change, but our attitude changes. One Mahant, you know, Mahant means head of an ashram like that. He passed away. Then some ceremony was going on after he passed away, some ceremony. Visitors came and they asked one question: what was it to which your master gave maximum importance when he was alive? What was it to which your master gave maximum importance when he was alive? The disciples answered, my master, our master, gave maximum importance to whatever he was doing at that time. He gave maximum importance to whatever he is doing at that time. That means, if he was reading a book, that is the most important thing in this creation, maximum important. When he was talking to someone, that person is the most important thing in this creation. He was giving full interest. When he was taking food, food is Annam Parabrahma Swarupam. It is God's creation. He was fully interested in taking food. So whatever he was doing, that is power of concentration, and that power of concentration helps us to succeed in our professional life and in every life. The power of concentration. And if you analyze why this concentration is broken, its concentration is broken mainly because of anxiety. Because we are doing something, again anxiety, what will happen there, that anxiety is so much, that is why I am not able to focus. If that anxiety is not there, everything will be taken care, and you are focused here. This is the problem at hand. So focusing the power of concentration for success, that is what is important. That only, it is said that only a saint lives in present. A saint lives in present. Most people live in the past and the future, brooding over the past or thinking about future. It is not wrong to do so. Definitely we should think about future and be benefited by past experiences, but focus must be here. That is possible for someone, that is possible. Meaning that just because one is meditating, he has no license to neglect his duties. His all duties, family responsibilities, official duties, professional, social duties, no excuse, all have to come together. That in a way meditation helps rather than it diffuses, it helps that. For me, another meditation, to be frank, the greatest revelation for me in this life, the greatest thing that I came to know in this life is this: suffering and happiness can go together. That is what I came to understand. Suffering and happiness can go together. Pain and happiness can pain and joy can coexist. Suppose I have pain, there is some pain in my hand, it does not mean that I have to be unhappy. I am not denying pain, pain is there, I am going through the pain, but at the same time I can be joyful inside. I am going through pain, because what is pain? Suffering, pain, anxiety, this is something thrust on us by circumstances over which we often have no control. Isn't it true? Pain and suffering, anxiety is thrust on us by circumstances over which we have no control, but joy is something we can manufacture inside. Peace is something we have to, peace cannot be bought in market. Peace and joy can be something we can manufacture within, because that source is there, that it is there, and that how to meditate, how to get that through meditation. That when you are meditating, we can manufacture inside that has very little influence, very little influenced by outward conditions. I mean, that is the revelation for me. Pain and joy can coexist. Suffering and happiness can go together. So, even if I may be suffering, that because events are such that in life I have no control, but still I can be joyful, and I can be so joyful. I mean, that is what meditation can do to anyone, because meditation takes us from this external world even to slowly inside interior life. This is known as interiorization, pratyahara, interiorization inside. That inside is joy, that core being is Satchidanand, each one of us. We can come in touch with that. See, we all want to be joyful, we all want to be happy, joyful, but where do we find the joy, the true joy? Where do we find some unconditional joy which does not fade? Where do we find? We all want, and because everyone, anyone wants it. Where do we find the joy? Where? Okay, I will just give an example. Grandmother was doing some embroidery. In the process, she dropped the needle dropped here. So, she wanted to find, started searching for the needle, but it was not well lit, that area, she could not find, started search. And someone asked, what are you doing? I am searching for the needle. You have to search in light, good advice. Then promptly grandmother went outside onto the street, started searching for the needle under a street light. Someone asked, what are you doing? I am searching for the needle. Where did you lose it? Inside. Then why are you searching outside? There is no light inside. No, we are laughing at grandmother, but are we not doing the same thing? If we are honest, where did we lose that joy? Where did we lose that joy? But where are we searching? If only I get that position, if only I have that possession, if only that is sorted out, if only this happens, if only there I will be happy, then I will be relaxed, then I will be there. Isn't it true? Yes. So natural, no exception. No, if that is sorted out, if this happens, then in that possession, in this position, in this relationship, with here, outside, always trying to fix there. Where we lost the joy, inside. Bring the light inside. Grandmother has to take the light inside and search. So, bring the light inside. That is what, I mean, that is meditation. You take the light inside, and then it is already there. There is an illustrative story. There was one poor person. All that he owned was a small plot of land. Small plot of land he had. That was his wealth, his property. He put a hut, small hut. He was living there, and he used to beg for his living. He was a beggar, but plot of land he had. He was his own hut there. At some point he fell ill. He tried, but could not get his disease off. So, having no other option, he sold that little plot of land to someone to get some money for treatment. He sold it and used that money for treatment, and eventually even that treatment failed and he died, is gone. And after he is gone, the person who purchased the land, he wanted to build a proper building there. He removed the hut and started digging foundation to build a big building. When he was started building, digging for foundation, there under the earth, he found a pot of gold coins. So this rich person has become richer, but now imagine all along this poor person had these gold coins right in his property, his own, but he never dug. He died a poor man. And same thing, that pot of gold is inside me, the joy, being part of divinity, that is inside, Satchidananda, that inside me, it is there, but never I dig. How to dig? Through meditation. Meditation is the pickaxe to dig into, go inside, interiorized state. There you can get it out and use that. I mean, we all, in that way, we are all, in a way, we are living as poor people, away from joy, that inherent, unconditional, pure joy, which is our true nature. It is there, but somehow we manage to live as poor people, almost. Normally, I depend for my joy through eyes. Whatever I can get through eyes, TV, I am joyful. Whatever I can get through my ears, I am joyful. Whatever I can get through my tongue, some eating something, I am joyful. I depend so much on my external these senses to joy, forgetting about that treasure inside. Dig through meditation, you will be more joyful. Next, about meditation, little bit. Once a person approached a sadhu and put him a direct question. He said, "Sir, I am very active, very busy in life. I don't have much time. Please tell me what is God in one sentence." We can relate to that, we are very busy, very active in life. We don't have much time. Please tell me what is God in one sentence. I don't need any lectures. This sadhu said, "Why one sentence? One word will do." What? Silence. What? God is silence. Yes, silence. And what is silence? Meditation. How do you meditate? In silence. How do you get that silence? By meditation. Now, here the three words, God, silence, meditation were used as if they refer to the same thing, which is true, because the silence which the saint is talking about is not the mere silence of vocal cords. Vocal cords have to be silent, thoughts have to be silent, emotions have to be silent, anxieties have to be silent, fears have to be silent, eyes have to be silent, ears have to be silent, skin has to be silent, all senses have to be silent. I mean, that is the state he is talking about. Imagine a state where you don't have sensations, you don't have thoughts, you don't have imaginations, you don't have fears, anxieties, emotions. Where are you? Aham Brahmasmi. That is my true state. All these are absent. Thoughts, emotions, anxieties, fears, sensations are not there. That is my true self, Aham Brahmasmi. For me, a better word is stillness. I use the word Nischal. Stillness is the word. You be still. You go to that stage, stillness. There you experience divinity within. It is there. That Bible says, "Be still and know I am God." That stillness, meditation is the one which takes us slowly to that point, stillness, where thoughts, emotions, anxieties, everything is slowly subdued. The stillness. Bible says, "Be still and know I am God." You understand? And Adi Shankaracharya says, "Nischala tattve jivan muktihi." Nischal means what? Nischal means stillness. That leads to jivan mukti, salvation. Nischal. A Chinese proverb says, the whole world surrenders to one who is still within. The whole world surrenders to one means not in literally you become a king, but the entire universe is at your command. You are still within. That stillness, which is your real treasure, is something you have to get to that. That is the get. You will be able to get it. That meditation is the one which takes us to stillness, dropping these emotions, thoughts, anxiety. Slowly they are all dropping, and slowly we go inside. Now we keep hearing that we are made in the image of God, or you are son of God, or God's image is in you. All these things we keep hearing. So if God's image is in me, if God divinity is in me, why can't I perceive it? Why can't I perceive? That's the question. The classical example given in spiritual literature is this: if you want to see the reflection of moon on a lake, the lake has to be still. If lake is ruffled, you can't see the reflection. Even if you see the reflection, it is distorted. Same thing, the lake, God's reflection is in me, divinity is in me, but the lake of my mind, the lake of my consciousness are always ruffled. Mind is always never quiet, never thinking, always ruffled. That is why I am not able to perceive the divinity. Meditation is the one which takes us there. So that it is said that it is not in doing, in being you perceive the stillness and divinity within. It is not in action, in awareness you perceive the joy within. It is not in doing but in being. It is not in action but in awareness we perceive that divinity. There lies the trick. How to get that? Meditation. It is scientific meditation. Scientifically we go within. Scientifically, if you practice, not just doing this, doing that, etc., scientifically learn and do that. And I would like to stop here, just only talking about our organization. We teach meditation techniques. We have 3 meditation techniques. One is known as Hangsa technique, next we known as Om technique, third is Kriya Yoga. All 3 we practice morning and evening, but one by one were taught, they are not taught together. So we learn, and purpose is same, interiorization. All these things, purpose is same. We interiorize ourselves, we go within, thoughts drop, thoughts subdued, and we enjoy that peace within, one by one. That is what. And we teach them through lessons, what we call lessons, like printed matter. We have Paramahansa Yoganandaji, who is our master. He gave in the form of lessons. There it is told how someone wants to meditate, how, where to put the hands, how to sit, where to put your gaze and mind, what to do, step by step for Hangsa, step by step for Om, similarly for Kriya. So these are taught. Whoever is interested, they have to ask for it. There is a small registration form, and we send the lessons home. The lessons come home. One can read at his own leisure and practice. Of course, whenever we come, we also directly teach them, and we can, that also is there. And we have ashrams, people can go to ashrams and learn. Essentially, it is not essential. It is not essential to go to a place to learn. You can learn wherever you are. Plus, whenever we come outside, we sit and teach. And these lessons contain information not only on meditation. There are some lessons on meditation, purely how to meditate, but there are also other things that are required for harmonious development of body, mind and soul, like the power of initiative, dynamic will, how to improve memory, right diet, right walking, right breathing, how to get along with others, how to get along with a disturbed person in the family, stage fright, how to get over stage fear. You name anything that is required in our daily life, it is there. All this, there are all these lessons. Whoever is interested, we send them. And meditation techniques we teach for those who would like to do that.